welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst horror movies of all time and talk about them. Today's episode is a little different from the usual format, something extra special at that, a bonus episode chatting to the writer of Sausages, The Making of Dog Soldiers, a book recently published by Encyclopocalypse Publications. My name is Ben Errington, and I'm joined by Janine Pipe, a full-time Splatterpunk Award-nominated writer, whilst also being a mum, wife, and Disney addict. Influenced by the works of King from a young age, she likes to shock readers with violence and scare them with monsters, both mythical and man-made. Welcome to the show, Janine.
Hey! It's almost as if I wrote that intro.
Whoa! You wrote that intro and just passed it to me in a little folded-up note. As I was reading it, I was like, this is a hell of a long intro. I could have just kept going on and on and on, listing your credentials and successes.
I like it. Thank you.
Yeah, it was just an ego boost. That was all the whole thing was supposed to be.
It worked.
It worked. It worked. So thank you so much for joining us. First of all, congratulations on the publication of Sausages.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's the whole thing. It sounds so cliche to keep saying it over and over, but it is a dream come true to have been able to write this book and to work with Neil with it. So yeah, I'm so happy it's finally out in the world. It seemed to take ages, but it was literally from the idea to it being out was about 6 months. So in a lifespan of writing a book, it's actually really, really short. But yeah, really pleased to be able to talk about this. So thank you.
Yeah, obviously fantastic. It's out. It was released on Friday the 13th, so only recently. And everyone's going crazy for it. Like horror fans, werewolf fans, Dog Soldiers fans, people just are going mad. Everyone's talking about it. I can't believe it. Yeah. I'm so glad I got a copy because if I would have seen everybody posting about it all over social media, I would have had serious FOMO. But the fact that I had it made me just go, oh yeah, go on, keep posting. I don't care. I got a copy. See you later.
You're one of the cool kids. Yeah.
I'm one of the cool kids. I'm one of the Sausages gang.
Exactly.
So I guess before we jump into everything, I'll give everybody some information on the book. So Sausages, The Making of Dog Soldiers, is a celebration of Neil Marshall's debut Soldiers versus Werewolves movie. To coincide with the 20-year anniversary, this book takes a deep dive look behind the scenes at the cult classic, as well as a full retrospective. You will find interviews with the cast and crew, never before seen photographs, an original shot list, excerpts from the script, and more. And it also includes a foreword from genre icon Joe Dante and an afterword from legendary director John Landis. Wow. That's some serious heavyweights right there.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. You can name drop till the cows come home from now on.
Yeah.
In all social situations you can. So I guess first, can we talk about your writing career, everything that's kind of like led you to this point, if that's okay?
Yeah, definitely. So like most writers, really, I kind of dabbled for years and years, starting at school with just bits and pieces. A lot of it back then was almost so I grew up in the 90s, and as well as reading stuff like Stephen King, I was reading stuff like the Point horror series, and a lot of the first writing that I did was kind of almost fan fiction of Point horror and the X-Files, which were kind of like two big influences on me. And then just I went to university, and I knew that I wanted to be a police officer. So things like English kind of took a bit of a back burner, and I did criminology and everything to get into the police. And once you kind of are in the police, everything becomes about that, and you don't have any kind of free time to be able to do any writing. So although I was still reading and watching a lot of horror films, my writing kind of fell to the wayside. And then when I had my daughter, I left the police, and I had some kind of free time on my hands because I was a stay-at-home mum. And one of my other major passions in life is Disney. And we'd been, you know, my husband and I had traveled over to Florida many times before. And what I'd started doing was blogging for a Florida ticket company, specifically about taking a young child over to Disney World. And I was doing a lot of writing to do with that within the Disney community and all of this kind of stuff. And I'd realized I got like my bug for writing back. But although that was good and I was enjoying it, obviously it was all factual, because you're doing sort of like tips and things of how to take a toddler on a long flight and all that kind of stuff. I felt to myself that I wanted to get back into writing fiction again. And horror was always going to be what I was wanting to do. And kind of like I was already on Twitter, so I started like looking for some more horror writers and people that were on there, and just seeing kind of like a way to get into it, because I had at first thought I'd just sit down and write a book. Well, that didn't happen. First of all, I had a child, you know, so I was doing all of this other kind of stuff. And also, as soon as you've actually got the time to sit down and do it, you're like, okay, what do I do now? So I'd started again blogging, but horror blogging this time. And something that seemed to go hand in hand with that was doing reviews. And as soon as you announce on something like Twitter that you would like to review someone's book, that's it, like hundreds of people started contacting me and sending me books and things and being like, please read and review my book. And I started doing that for other websites and magazines and things. And all of the time I was doing that, so obviously getting sort of like the writing practice in and whatnot, I'd started writing short stories and submitting them off to different open calls for anthologies and stuff like that. And what I discovered was that I really liked short form writing. And specifically for anthologies and things like that. And actually I like short form movies as well. A lot of people don't like anthology movies, but I actually really enjoy those, you know, like the VHS, Trick or Treat, stuff like that. I love all of those kind of things. It might be something to do with my attention span. Like I like it short and sharp. And and then what I realized was that I had quite a lot of, you know, I was really lucky. I had about 20 stories out in all of these different anthologies and things. But sort of when you go onto Amazon and you click on your name, obviously it's all these different anthologies that you're part of a collection of. It's not your own work. And people were starting to say, you know, like when I was doing interviews and different bits and pieces, well, where's your work? Where can I buy something of just yours? And I realized that I'd had quite a few stories just like saved on the computer. So I thought to myself, why not put a collection of my own short stories out? And so I did that last year. And then that's about as far as it got with my own fictional writing, because it wasn't long after that that everything started with all of the sort of like leading up to the Dog Soldiers bits and pieces. So that's kind of like, if anybody wanted to read any of my fiction, if you just go on to Amazon, obviously, like click on my name, all of the different anthologies and things that I'm in is on there, and my own collection, which is called Twisted Tainted Tales. Excuse me. But in between all of that, I edit for a couple of presses as well. So I've edited some anthologies, and that's really quite time consuming and hard work when obviously especially if it's an open call and you have all of the people submitting stories to you. But that's really good as well. It's lovely to be able to collate other people's stories and put them all together and then put them out into the world. So that's something else that I do, as well as my own writing. I edit for 2 presses at the moment. So yeah.
Okay.
Wow. I told you I waffle.
Lots of stuff going on. Well, I asked a question, you know. If I asked a question and I didn't like the answer, then what kind of interviewer am I, you know? So collection of shorts. So is it all horrors in that sort of collection?
Oh, yes.
Straight up. Okay. Any werewolves?
Yes, there's about 3 or 4 werewolf stories in that one, actually. Yes, because they're one of my favorite to write. Yeah, I love werewolf stuff.
There we go. Okay, so I guess that's led us nicely up to the point of sausages, and so I just wondered what inspired you to write this book, and how does it differ, would you say, to everything you've written before?
Dog Soldiers has been my favorite movie for years and years and years. And it's funny, when I kind of announced that I was doing this, anyone that knew me wasn't remotely surprised, because it's like one of those things that like any kind of interview that I'd done, or like if I'd been on a panel for something, no matter what it was, somehow I would manage to segue Dog Soldiers into the conversation. You know, it's just one of those things. Have you seen Dog Soldiers? Oh, I'm going on holiday next week. Make sure you watch Dog Soldiers before you go. That kind of thing.
Literally, just before you leave.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't know if I've got time.
It's exactly, just obsessed with it, absolutely love it. And what had happened, it was round about coming up to sort of Halloween time last year, so around about September, October. And something which I'd wanted to do for ages was to write an article for Fangoria, you know, because to me Fangoria are kind of like, you know, the pinnacle of horror magazines and all that kind of stuff. So I'd been sort of thinking of some different ideas and things that I could pitch to Phil, the editor over there. And it suddenly occurred to me that it was going to be the 20th anniversary of my favorite film. And if ever there was a time to pitch an article to, you know, the kind of the premiere horror magazine, then this was it. So I emailed Phil and I was like, oh, can I write a feature for you about Dog Soldiers? And he was like, do you know what? Yes, you can. That sounds amazing. But you need to get in touch with Neil, and you need to get some photos, and you need this and you need that. And I remember kind of being sat right here and thinking to myself, shit, I've got to speak to Neil Marshall. I don't know if I can actually do that. You know, these are like, you know, they're like my royals, you know, they are my idols. I absolutely, they're the people that are on my telly. How am I going to ever speak to them?
How'd you even get in there?
And that first conversation that I had with Neil was, he's just, I have to say, and you know, I'm not going to say anything bad about any of them anyway, but they are all so nice and so genuine and so down to earth. And okay, they're used to doing interviews, you know, they're media trained and all of that kind of stuff, but every single person really put me at ease, because I can remember Sean Pertwee FaceTimed me. And he was, I was expecting a phone call, and his face just appears like on my phone, and I'm like, it's Sean Pertwee, oh my God.
Remain calm.
That's it. But the thing is, and the way I approached it as well is like, it's the way I approach life in general. I'm always genuine, and I'm always honest. You know, what you see is what you get with me. So once I'd kind of calmed down and been like, I'm totally fangirling kind of thing. And they put me at ease, sort of thing, because they knew that it was going to be a celebration. Excuse me. And because they knew I wasn't looking to catch anyone out. I didn't want any dirt. I didn't want any backstabbing or any,
you mentioned that in the book as well, don't you? You mentioned that, you say it's a celebration, you know, you love this film, you love everybody involved, and you're not trying to dig up any dirt. Not that it seemed like there was any anyway, but even if there was, we're not interested.
Exactly. That's it. And I think because obviously, you know, they're used to being caught out by like the paparazzi and all that kind of thing. And once they know that that's not what your angle is, you're not interested in that, you are a fan and you want to celebrate, you know, you want to celebrate them, you want to celebrate them. They were more than happy, because as much as I loved the film, they loved making it, and that was very, very obvious. And again, that was very genuine coming through, that they had a bloody good time making this, and that they are proud that it had legs, that it's got this far. So it was just an absolute joy to speak with them. And as far as writing it, the only thing that was difficult about writing it was sometimes pinning people down for interviews, because people like Kevin McKidd, for example, who is an absolute joy. He is so nice. But he's Mr. Grey's Anatomy, you know, he's a superstar over there now. If he's not filming, he's directing. So getting hold of someone like him and being able to pin him down for, you know, an actual interview and whatnot, we did it, and you know, it was one of the best hours I've had. He's just such a lovely guy. But that was logistically, those were the only kind of issues that there were. The rest of it, I just sat and wrote it. there was no kind of like, again, because that's how it differs from fiction, because with fiction you're constantly second guessing. Have I just made a plot hole here? Is this going to work? How am I going to twist this, and how's this, and know everything? Especially for me, because I'm a bit of a pantser when I write. I don't tend to plan anything. It's all kind of like fly by the seat of your pants as you're writing. But with this, I knew exactly what I was doing, because there wasn't any need to kind of like question anything. It was very much a process, and I wrote the book chronologically like the movie was made. So I actually found it quite easy to write. And again, it was just because I was enjoying it. I couldn't write it down quick enough. It was like, I'm gonna need more hours in the day because I've got so much to say.
I've got all these words. Get me another computer. One hand on each laptop. Come on.
That's it, yeah. Like the meme of that cat that's just sat there doing that. That was me.
that was totally you. But so how the only gap that I was in the sort of timeline I was interested in filling there is how it flourished from like a Fangoria article into this fully fledged retrospective.
Oh yes.
With like everybody involved. Was there?
Yeah.
Was that based on the reception to the article?
No, not at all. That was based on once I'd initially spoken to Neil and Sean and Darren, I think, and I kind of realized how much more, because with a magazine article, you're very limited, obviously, to how many words that you can use, because it's part of a magazine. You can't do that much. And there was, it was evident that there was so much more that they wanted to say, that I wanted to say about it. So I actually spoke to Neil and said, I sort of pitched the idea of doing a biography. I said to him, I think it would be really interesting, because by that time we'd had like 3 or 4 conversations, and I kind of like realized that what a nice guy he was, and as well as how talented. Excuse me. And so I said that was the original idea, that I said to him, has anyone ever approached you about writing a biography? And if not, would you like me to do it? And he was like, wow, it's obviously something that's, really nice of you to suggest and everything. I'd love to be able to do something like that. But he had just read the Shaun of the Dead, You've Got Red on You. I don't know if you've got that book or seen that book as well, which I've got. And I actually spoke with Clark Wallace. He gave me some advice about writing this, but he said, yeah, so I've just got the Shaun of the Dead one, You've Got Red on You. And what I would love is somebody to do that for Dog Soldiers. Would you like to write the making of Dog Soldiers? And I think I just sat there for about 10 minutes and I was like, holy shit.
Don't say yes too fast. Don't say yes too fast.
My favorite director in the entire world has just asked me to write a book about my favorite film in the entire world. It's kind of like, is somebody going to jump? Is it like Beatles about? Is someone going to show my age there? Is someone going to jump out? And
rest in peace, Jeremy.
Yeah, definitely. So I was like, yeah, I think I would quite like to do that. Yeah, definitely. And it just so happened that I had just connected with Encyclopocalypse as a reader, because I'd got I think their Fright Night book was the book that I'd picked up, and so I realized that they were obviously a press that did movie tie-in stuff. And I thought to myself, because that's the only other thing, if you're writing fiction, there's loads of different places that you can obviously submit stuff and pitched and whatnot. But when it's non-fiction, and especially when it's non-fiction and very, very specific non-fiction, there's not as many places for you to kind of go to and say, would you, because it's a bit of a risk for them to take it on. And luckily, as soon as I spoke to Mark and I said, I've got this idea about Dog Soldiers, and he was like, yes, I want it, I'll take it, whatever you do, we will publish, because he is a massive fan as well. And when he spoke to me, it was just like my enthusiasm for it and everything. And as soon as he knew that Neil was going to be part of it, so it wasn't just me writing it as a fan. There was very much, it's not an official, we can't call it an official movie tie-in because of IP stuff and everything, but it's as much as it can be because of all the people that were involved. So luckily, just from the get-go, everyone was really excited and everybody wanted to be a part of it. So
Seems
I
like
was
the
just lucky.
stars. Just seems like the stars aligned, and like every single piece of that dog-shaped puzzle just came together. Dog-shaped
It
puzzle,
did,
sausage-shaped puzzle, maybe a sausage-shaped puzzle. So
maybe.
I mean, how how did Joe Dante and John Landis throw their hats in the ring? I don't want. I'm
Yeah.
whispering that.
As if they're listening somehow.
Yeah. Don't tell him.
That came very much again because of everything that Neil did to help with this. So I wanted it to be almost like one of the documentaries that you watch, like on Shudder, where you have all of the stuff that where you're looking at it, but also you have the famous talking heads throwing in their bits of information as well. That's kind of what I wanted to have for this. And of course, Neil had often said in different interviews and things that two of his major influences for Dog Soldiers were American Werewolf in London and The Howling. And I when I was just thinking about, who could possibly do a foreword for something as amazing as this, I kind of just said to him, so do you happen to know any really cool people from your time in Hollywood? And I don't suppose you happen to know like Joe Dante or John Landis? And he was like, yeah, I know those guys. Here's their emails. You can talk to them. And when you're like,
Let me get my little black book out of famous directors. I'll just here's their email addresses, just casual. Here's their email addresses.
Yeah. And honestly, so it was the same like when I spoke to like James Wan and Edgar Wright and all these kind of people. It was like, and I had like a conversation with Simon Pegg and all this kind of stuff. You never just like,
oh wow,
yeah, this is my life now. I just talk to these people. That's just fine.
Yeah, I'll just have a chat to. Who do you have a chat to before tea time? Oh, just Edgar Wright. Yeah, well, I've got Simon Pegg on the phone in a minute. No, won't leave me alone.
Exactly. It's just been completely nuts. It really has. But if it wasn't for Neil, I wouldn't have had that, level of like the ins with these people, because that's the other kind of thing as well, is that all of these people I've got, and it's the level of trust as well, but it's all their personal phone numbers, their personal emails, all of that kind of stuff. I haven't had to go through agents and publicists and all those kind of people who are very important, and who obviously field all sorts of stuff where, but if I'd have had to go down that line, I might not have spoken to any of these people, because they might not have been even remote. Because a lot of the time when you speak to an agent and an agent says no, if you then happen to go on and speak to the actual person at a later date, they'll be like, my agent never said a word to me. And that's just, it's just the name of the game. So if it wasn't for Neil, then these people wouldn't be involved. But yeah, just I emailed John Landis yesterday, because I'm sending them all like a copy of the book, and I was just like, yeah, just me and my bestie John Landis, that's just fine.
All right, John.
So
all right, John, how's it going, mate? Don't suppose you want a copy of this book. I know you wrote the afterword, foreword, but here it comes over. It seems like you just cut out the middleman. You've gone straight for the jugular and just said, listen. Here's this awesome book I'm writing. Get involved, and obviously everyone has. So that's lovely. What a great, what perfect situation. I guess the other things I wanted to ask you were just about the film in general rather than the book. So even though I know this, listeners might not if they've not read the book. So do you remember the first time you saw the film, and how many times do you think you've seen it in total?
Okay, so yes, I wish I had a really nice, we bought tickets, we paid to go and see it, we sat in the cinema, but no. The first time that I watched Dog Soldiers, I was on holiday with my husband, well, then boyfriend, back in 2002. And we were slightly tipsy because we were in Corfu, sat at a bar. We'd been there all day in the heat, watching probably illegal football on the bed. Like what it's like when they just bring like a white sheet out and just stick it up, and then just
when you said illegal football, I was like, what were they using for the football? Like some of spikes in it, just like a grenade.
Like gladiator football. That's right. That's what we were watching. It was
an illegal stream.
Stuff. Yeah, an illegal
Yep.
stream. That's it. Yeah.
Still just as
and then
bad. Some people would say just as bad, but
some people would say worse than kicking round a spike. Anyway, but so obviously the football finishes and we're still sat there drinking, you know, like 50p beer and stuff. And the white sheet is still there. And all of a sudden I'm looking up and I can see like the projectors obviously whirring again. And there's this movie comes on. And I can remember just being just utterly like as I was watching it, but because it was one of those pirate things, which was obviously filmed in the cinema, you could literally see like the people getting up, you know, like those feeds when like people get up and like go get the popcorn and stuff. And all I could remember afterwards was that Sean Pertwee was in it, and I knew who he was because I already had seen Event Horizon and absolutely loved Sean. And that there was something to do with his guts and sausages. That was about all I could remember that it was. And then I remember being in Blockbuster a couple of years later and seeing it. It might have even still been a VHS or a DVD. I can't remember. Being like, I didn't hallucinate that whole thing to do.
Yeah.
It's an actual thing.
I love that moment. Like when you think you remember the film, but you think you're the only person in the world who's seen it. And then suddenly it's real. That's a great moment. Yeah. Great discovery.
And also watching it back the second time and being like realizing it was as amazing and actually better because you can actually remember what happened. Because sometimes you have like you romanticize, especially when you're on holiday and everything. Oh, it must have been this amazing film, and then you manage to watch the actual film and you're like, oh my God, did I actually say that I enjoyed that? But
what was I thinking? It was a 50p beer that did it.
That's it. And as for how many times I've watched it, now I will say that I had to watch it an awful lot for this. So it's got to be approaching 100 times. It must be.
Jesus. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, you've written a book on it, so you kind of probably had to. So that's understandable.
Yeah.
And you know, can't think of what a great film to have to watch over and over again.
Exactly. And it never gets old. You know, sometimes I've just got it on in the background and I'm literally like doing the, you know, I can recite nearly line for line now. So nobody ever watch it with me because I must be a right fucking nightmare as I'm like parroting the lines.
That could be a party trick. Oh, have you got any talents? I'm going to recite this whole film. Everybody sit down. It's going to take
you're in for a treat,
an hour and a half. So obviously Dog Soldiers is your favorite werewolf movie. That is a given. Do you have a definitive top 5? And I know we've got the heavy hitters, of course. And yeah, do you have a definitive top 5? Have they got any surprises in there at all? We can include Dog Soldiers number 1. That's fine.
Yeah, Dog Soldiers is obviously number 1, and everything else just pales into comparison with it. I do also love American Werewolf in London. As we mentioned before we came on, Late Phases I think is a brilliant film. Don't like the werewolf design, but I love everything else about it. Howl is another favorite of mine. Which is another British one, and of course Sean's in it just for a few minutes at the beginning, but still makes an appearance. Silver Bullet, and I think partly that's a nostalgia thing as well, with it being obviously 80s and Stephen King and all of that. And Ginger Snaps, I do like Ginger Snaps as well, especially obviously because it's got the leads being women, and obviously all of the links with their menstruation, all that kind of stuff. It's a good different kind of take on it. And The Howling as well, you know, you've got to have that in there. So yeah, there's a lot of good films. I know werewolves are one of those creatures which don't get enough love, I think. And I think there's going to be a resurgence of werewolf love, and we're going to get some good werewolves again rather than all the CGI stuff that we kind of had. And the CGI stuff tends to be when it's not just werewolves. So when like you're going into kind of like things like Van Helsing and all of that kind of stuff, where you're going into different kind of creatures and worlds and stuff. But yeah, werewolves, if they're done, have to be practical. It has to be. It can't be any other way.
I've got a quick fire round as well. I might have to delete one of these now just because of what you've just said, but we'll still do it anyway. Actually, sorry. One more question before that.
Okay.
This might be difficult. Would you rather see a Dog Soldiers remake or a Dog Soldiers sequel?
Sequel.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Sequel. Because
if anybody tried to remake it, there would be hell to pay.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. Yeah.
Like I was gonna say, with all the same people, but spoiler, most of them dead. I suppose they could be werewolves themselves. Maybe.
Could be.
I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
Who knows? Okay. And also one other thing. Would you write a companion piece to another favorite film of yours after this experience?
Yes.
Straight up. I was gonna say what one, but I've got a feeling maybe something could be in the works. Who knows? Possibly. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That's what we'll say. That's all we need to say. Just a little teaser. Get everybody excited, but don't say what. I won't even try to guess. Okay. So little quick fire round then for for you, Janine. So sausage sandwich or sausage roll?
Vegetarian sausage sandwich.
Vegetarian sausage sandwich. Okay, I should have put that as an option. Practical effects or CGI?
Always practical, always in camera, all the time. Yes.
It's got to be, isn't it? Weapon of choice, frying pan or hammer?
Well, we've all seen what Spoonie can do, obviously, with a frying pan, and Rapunzel, if you have a daughter, or son, if they like Tangled. However, a hammer can definitely do a lot more damage.
Yeah, it can, can't it? Would you shoot the dog or punch Captain Ryan in the face?
Oh, punch Captain Ryan every time. Sorry, Liam, I love you, but no, the dog never gets
every
it.
time.
It's always a punch.
Seemed a little bit, you answered that too quickly, a bit too keen. And finally, full moon or a single buttock? I asked my co-host to provide some quick fire questions, and this was the only one that was really provided. So I apologize, but I'm also by saying that I'm saying it's not down to me. I'm absolving all blame.
Full moon.
Full moon. It's got to be full moon. If you're gonna do it, you might as well just do it. Single buttock. Who are you mucking about with?
There's no point, is there? There's just no point.
And also, I feel like the logistics of it are more difficult to get a single buttock.
Definitely. How are you gonna? Yeah, no, that's just never gonna work.
No, absolutely not.
Yep.
That's it. I know that was probably the shortest quickfire round in the history of quickfire rounds. So I was going to say, what's your next book? Are you working on anything special at the moment? But I'm assuming possibly that was what we kind of hinted at then. Or is there anything else you can talk about?
No, there's absolutely nothing I can talk about, which is kind of annoying. So my next works will be through Encyclopocalypse. There will be more making ofs, and there will be some novelizations. However, everything is all up in the air, and everything waiting on different people signing off on stuff and IP and all of that kind of thing, which is more of a arse to sort out than probably anyone would ever imagine. But yes, there will be plenty more, and there will be more stuff with Neil. I can say, because we did actually announce it right back when we did the official press announcement, which was in Fangoria for Sausages, that we will actually be doing one for the Descent as well. So that will be the next big one, but it won't be until 2025. Okay. Which is the 20th anniversary of the Descent as well. So we'll be doing exactly the same for the Descent, which I cannot wait for, because that is my other all-time favorite movie, and far scarier. See, Dog Soldiers will always be my favorite because I love comedy. So anything that's got that comedic element is always going to be up there. But the Descent actually scared me, because I'm claustrophobic.
Claustrophobia as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's very exciting. I'm looking forward to that. So I guess the only other thing I need to ask is, where can our listeners find sausages, and I guess where can they also follow you to keep up to date with everything you've just mentioned?
So at the moment, sausages is only available on Amazon. So if you if you type in, make sure you put the making of dog soldiers with sausages, otherwise you will be finding stuff for your dinner. It's available currently in hardback, paperback, and Kindle. So that's just on Amazon. And then the best place to follow me really is Twitter, where I'm just simply Janine Pipe 28. That's where I'm most active. I do have Instagram and stuff, but Twitter is where I hang out because I'm old.
Twitter,
Instagram's for youngsters.
Twitter is where you horror hang out.
That's
Sorry.
right.
There we go. So thank you very much, Janine. So obviously, thank you to everybody for listening. If you enjoyed the show, become a patron over at patreon.com/horror hangout. Thanks to Taj Easton for our theme music. Thanks to Acast for hosting the show. Please consider giving us a rating or review, and head over to the Facebook group Horror Hangout Board of Advisors to interact with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Janine.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Chat to you again. Maybe we'll get you in on for a special werewolf themed episode at some point very soon.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
I hope so. Lovely stuff. Okay. Thanks a lot, Janine. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.